Good morning, New Vision Center. And good morning, New Vision Center online campus. I am Reverend Leslie Goodwin. I'm your Associate Minister here at New Vision Center, and it's my delight to welcome absolutely everyone. Teresa, the Divine Groove definitely set the energy for today's message. And it really sets us up well to think about this idea of, we come to Sunday service, right? Whether it's your bajillionth time in a row, your first time back after a long time, or your first time ever being present in the Tatum campus or on the online campus, we have our Sunday celebration and the music jazzes us up and the presence of one another and our loving sharing on the chat, and we are buoyed up and ready to take on the world, right? And then Tuesday hits. And Tuesdays, right? And then Thursday. Thursdays can be a little sketchy. And by the time we hit Friday, we are done. It's all dumb. None of it works. And we're crawling back in on Sunday morning again, hoping to get that buoyed back up. What happens to us in between Sunday to Sunday? What's going on there? And very, very often, a piece of what's happening is that we are engaged fully and completely with our whole heart, our whole body, our whole emotional set on Sunday. And then we just kind of don't do that much to engage that part of ourselves that is of a spiritual nature on the in-between. Now, I feel confident that if I were to ask you beloved, wonderful people, what I might think we should be doing on the in-between days, it would be daily substantial spiritual practice. That's right, daily substantial spiritual practice. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand because I know we're not big fans of throwing ourselves under the bus around here. I mean, I kind of am, but people are not. But if we were all really honest, probably 8 hands would go up if I were to say, and who really does literal, daily, substantial spiritual practice? We got Jerry. There are a few, right? And if I were to hone in on those few, it was really easy to get started and you had no resistance, right? Maybe not, right? Or there were stops and starts, or times when you did it really, really well, and then times when somehow we just sort of forget, maybe even for years at a time, and we think, I had it so in hand. Why did I let that go? And it's because we're humans, and humans do human-y things. And yet, why do we get up on Sunday morning? And we could all still be in bed, in fuzzy jammies. And yet we get up and we turn on our television or our computer, or we show up at the Tatum campus because something in our soul is crying out. And that's why when I asked beloveds, we're kind of right in the middle of the year, and so I tend to start asking, what do you want to hear messages about? What do you want to hear messages about to beloveds in the community? And some wonderful person said, something about spiritual practice, because you talk about it all the time like it's easy, and I'm here to tell you it's not easy for me. Was that person the only one? Nope. If it was really, really easy, I wouldn't have to talk about it. We would all already be doing it. So to put it in context of our annual theme, which is Every Path Leads Home, we talk about these paths of self-exploration, and they're infinite, and every single one of us leads us to where we need to go. But if we're going to talk about this idea of anchoring a daily substantial spiritual practice that we will actually do, 2 of them that we need to look at is this idea of communion with indwelling spirit and personal responsibility. Because no matter how connected we are to indwelling spirit, do you know what the spirit of the understanding of science of mind is not going to do? It is not going to descend bodily into your meditation room and say, Celeste, you will do your meditation right now. Like, that's just not how it works. It's this inner knowing, nobody's going to make you do it. And you know what your science of mind ministers aren't going to do? And sometimes I lament this just a tiny bit. We are not going to tell you you're going to go to hell and suffer in damnation for eternity if you don't do your spiritual practice. Every once in a while, deep down in the part of me that I don't like to acknowledge, I'm a little jealous of the ministers that get to say that. That's a really good manipulation tool, isn't it? And we don't get to use that because we know it's not true. Darn it. But I can tell you that almost anything you were to tell me, I would go so far as to say anything you were to tell me that you wished worked better in your life, I can promise that a daily substantial spiritual practice will ease your path to that thing, that way of being, that way of feeling, that way of showing up in the world, that way of living in relationship. It is the secret, not secret, magical, not magical answer to everything, to literally everything. It's like, for the nerds in the room, it's 42. It's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. I'm so glad one of you is here. You and me, man, you and me. It's simple. It's so simple. You mean, Reverend Leslie, if I just do a daily substantial spiritual practice, my life will work better consistently, bit by bit, in ad infinitum, forever? Yeah. Yes! People want it to be complicated. They want to have to be a parcel mouth and speak the snake language from Harry Potter to get the secret sauce. This is the secret sauce. I'm going to give it to you. It's worth the price of admission. The 0 cents you paid to show up today, it's going to be worth it. So before we really kick off, the 3 lies that get in our way. That's at the heart of this talk. The 3 lies that convince us not to do practice. First, we have to know the answer to the question, what is daily substantial spiritual practice? Dear God, that phrase a lot. What does she mean? I think my husband probably says that often at our house. What does that woman mean? It's 4 practices. I did not invent this. This is a common thread through literally every faith tradition and every philosophical tradition that you could possibly find. The same 4 practices. Are we ready? Are we ready? There are 4. 4. Talking to spirit in some form. Most people would call that prayer. Here we do spiritual mind treatment. Is spiritual mind treatment the only form of prayer that works? Absolutely not. Literally, from just like, God, let's have a chat, to every kind of memorized prayer, every kind of chanted, it all works. We're big fans of spiritual mind treatment for our own reasons, but they all work. So is it going to be a reasonable excuse to say, I can't do talking to spirit because I can't speak a spiritual mind treatment yet? No, because you can do something. At the very least, you can talk to the energetic understanding of your personal God spirit experience. Number 2, listening to that same energy. Most of us would call that meditation. We love a big, long, silent meditation here in Science of Mind. Is that the only kind of meditation? No. Is it the only kind of meditation that works? No. We've got a labyrinth outside. You can go for a walk. You can do any sort of repetitive behavior, chanting, malas, rosaries, joy of movement dancing. I was like, kickboxing? Like, we're playing charades in the second row. Anything, yoga, I hear from the back row. I bet that was from Amy. Anything that allows us to get out of our intellect mind and into our receiving consciousness puts us in a meditative state. That's number 2. Infinite ways to do it. Number 3, touching in with truth. Reading wisdom. Re-listening to a message that really touched you, opening up your phone and reading the daily text of the day that has a quote from Ernest Holmes and a contemplation question. All of those things and a million others, touching in with wisdom. And the 4th is self-reflection, connecting to what all of that means on the inside of our own selves, because that's how we embody it, and it starts to show up in our behavior, stops being just this idea out there, and starts being who we are. Talking, listening, touching base with truth, and self-reflecting. Easy, right? Okay, somewhere out there, I can feel it. My antennas are quivering. Somebody out there is thinking, oh, that can't possibly make that big of a difference. I've done all those things, and it can't possibly make that big of a difference. Ha ha, my friend. We will prove you wrong. So I like to check in with Ernest Holmes, see what he had to say about some of these things. And this is how he kind of summed up where we're heading today. Through prayer and in meditation, we unify ourselves with the divine presence in everything. We come into closer contact with the living spirit, which is in all people and all things. So through these practices, we're touching base with what already is. And inherently, that allows to fall away from us that which has not been true. Well, that to me sounds like a pretty good formula for moving towards that which we would define as good individually and moving away from that which we would define as less good. Oh, but our brains are wily little creatures, and the people-y parts of ourselves keep right on people, and don't they? So here is a lie I hear sometimes, on the inside of me and on the outside of y'all. If I can't do it perfectly, why bother? There's a perfect practice. I've planned it in my head. It's 45 minutes of absolute thought-free silent meditation with no distracting thoughts or noises, or children running in, or dogs barking, or garbage trucks, or air conditioners making that weird whistly sound, in which I sit in absolute perfect silent stillness and feel the energy of the universe suffusing my very cells. And I know that I am God in form. Well, that sounds lovely, doesn't it? Most of us have had that happen, if ever, once, and for about 35 seconds before the next thought comes in. After that, I'm going to have the most beautiful spiritual mind treatment that ever has been spoken by a human that will immediately manifest the answers to all my dreams in real time. Then I'll read 3 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook and understand every word of it. And then I will journal for an hour. And when I'm done, I will have planned my next 5 years, and I will then do all of those things perfectly with no confusion, and I will not get frustrated ever again. And if I don't do that, why bother? It won't work anyway. Okay, so obviously I'm exaggerating for effect, but we do kind of come up with this right way to do it. And if that is not easily available to us, we have a tendency to pack it in. But as I was saying at the top of the talk, there are infinite ways to do each of these 4 steps. Sure, we like to have a perfect, beautiful, long, silent meditation in which we are not distracted. And then there are days when we have projectile vomiting. It happened to me last week. It wasn't cute, at a food poisoning event. And do we think that I was laying in the hospital having a nice silent meditation? No. But does that mean I skipped my practice that day? No. I meditated for about 2 minutes at a time, and then I took advantage of that really wonderful new invention of a vomit bag they have at the ER that you can hold and it actually catches everything. Like, somebody really invented something cool there. And then I gave that to the nurse, and then I tried to meditate for another 2 minutes for about 9 hours. That's how that went. Sometimes we're too sad to do our normal practice. Sometimes we're in physical pain. Sometimes we're in emotional pain. Sometimes we're too distracted by what's going on in life to do our normal practice. But there are infinite right ways to do these practices. A common mainstream phrase is failure to plan is planning to fail. Y'all have heard that? I really think that this is true when it comes to spiritual practice, because we have all got in our head the really good day practice planned out, right? But do we have the really crappy day practice planned out? Of course not. Of course we don't. We don't think that way. And yet, if we have the really crappy day practice planned out and filed in the back of our brain, when that day hits, we know what to do. So I was having a meeting with one of my many mentees. One of the great joys in my life is I work as a mentor for brand new ministers as they're going through the ordination process, and I have a whole passel of them. And so I was talking to one of them, and they were telling me about this particularly awful period of time they'd just gone through, and a particularly awful day even in that period of time. And we were talking about this idea of practice. I always ask, how's your practice going? And they were like, I didn't practice at all. Minister. I know, shock. Let yourself feel the shock. What? A minister had a bad day and didn't do their practice? And I said, let's talk this through. Let's talk through the four practices. Talking to God. Did you talk to the God of your understanding that day? And they said, well, I was laying on the concrete watching ants and a chipmunk. I've had that day. All you can do is watch whatever walks by. And I said, God, you better fix this. This all really sucks. I feel terrible. You better fix this. God in there, indwelling, right? Hey, chop chop. Counts. Talk to the God of your understanding and asked for what you needed. Declared that you believed that such a thing could come forth. I mean, nothing shows belief like giving God assignments. Do it. That's not in the, please fix it. No, chop. I was like, okay, listening. Did we do some listening to Spirit? Well, I laid there in silence and went, help. And then I laid there in more silence and went, I need help. Counts. In the receptive mode, willing to let some truth come through. And they said, and at some point I got up, so it must have helped. They're not still on the concrete. It's been a couple months, so it would be a problem if they were still down there. But they managed to get up and get on with their life. And I said, okay, so we talked to Spirit, we listened to Spirit. Did we touch base in any truth? Well, I did read my Ernest Holmes quote text because it comes to my phone and that's real easy. Is one sentence of truth touching in with truth? Yes. Does it count? Yes. And did we do any self-reflection? Well, the quote text has a question at the end, and I did lay on the concrete and think about that question. And the question was, how can Spirit open you up to the next great thing? And I laid there, and I thought about it, and I eventually got off the sidewalk. Does it count? Yes. Take a breath. If we leave ourselves open enough to trust ourselves enough to touch base at the level that makes sense to us at that moment and let that be enough, we get to have that feeling of support. They got off the sidewalk. Oh, to have known this in my 20s. Ernest Holmes tells us, the quickest and most effective method to get rid of fear is to get quiet and lift up the whole thought in confidence and faith to something bigger than we are. It is like going from a cold, dark room into the sunshine and just sitting there, letting the rays of sun penetrate the whole being with warmth and color until the dark and dampness are gone. So it is with the life of prayer and faith, affirmative meditation, and of communion with that divine Spirit, which is closer to us than our very breath. The second lie I hear, if it doesn't work immediately, I have failed and should abandon ship. It often comes to me in the form of, well, it didn't make a difference, so I quit. Or I tried it 3 times and I didn't feel better, so I quit. Whew. Oh. I think maybe we should check in with Cerise and see how her 1, 2, or 3 days of vocal training led to that virtuoso performance. I'm pretty sure she did one day, right? One practice, one rehearsal, and it just magically came forth, because things don't take work. We don't have to build habits, right? It's instant, it's magic. Of course not, of course not. Why is it that we know this about literally every activity on planet Earth except spirituality? Nobody thinks they're gonna pick up a guitar and play like Jack Saba today. If you do, bless your sweet heart, please record it and send it to me. That sounds fun. For me. We know that we have to build skills. We know that things don't just flow easily, immediately. And then we forget it about spiritual practice. I've had people say, it should just flow. If it isn't natural, if it takes any effort, then I'm manipulating it and it's not real. Does that work in any other arena of life? Of course not. We're building habits here. Habits of belief, habits of action, habits of practice, and habits of behavior. And when I say habits of behavior, I mean habits of behavior when we're not sitting in our practice. Because what we're building sitting in that practice is the willingness to trust spirit, is the willingness to be quiet until the answer comes, is the willingness to be open. And how does that translate into relationship? As patience, as compassion, as loving kindness. We are practicing who we wish to be in the world, and it takes, it's not called daily, substantial, spiritual, absolute perfection in the first moment and every single moment ever after. That would be a terrible acronym. It's daily, substantial, spiritual practice. Reverend Leslie, are you serious about every day? I'm very rarely serious about much of anything, but I am absolutely serious about that. Our good friend Ernest Holmes says, each day, without fail, give time to meditation. Sit quietly, forget everything that suggests chaotic conditions or personal dilemma. Daily sit in meditation. This is vitally important. It's the most important thing we can do to have a happy life. It's the most important thing we could do to have a happy life. It's the most important thing it's like an acting exercise. It's the most important thing we could do. It's the most important thing we can do. I couldn't say it enough times and in enough ways to add the emphasis that I believe is there. And that not just I believe, that every mystic, every faith teacher, every faith leader I've ever heard, ever, in any faith tradition talk about, leads us back to these 4 practices over and over again. And the final lie I want to touch on that I hear is, if I'm not suffering, it doesn't have value. Oh, that usually is an overflow from a previous religion or belief that if we're not struggling, it doesn't have value. And it shows up like this. If 20 minutes of meditation is good, then 45 minutes of meditation is better. And if 45 minutes of meditation is good, then an hour and a half of meditation is better. And then if an hour and a half of meditation is good, then 9 hours of silent meditation while flogging myself is better. And then we're really surprised when they quit, because that is sucky and nobody wants to do that. And now we're back to the beginning with the, if I can't do it perfectly, why bother? Well, of course we can't. We've made it so complicated. Oh, and by the way, not just silent meditation. No, it has to be some very complicated occult process that we found at a special empowerment meeting in a vortexy place like Sedona, where somebody who wore a very special hat. Why do they always have special hats? imbued me with the power to do this very, nah. I mean, if you like that stuff, knock yourself out. It's all fun and it all works, but it all works. Sit down and meditate. Sit down, think a thought, think, I'm not supposed to be thinking that thought, I'm supposed to be meditating, and go, no, I remember now, I'm meditating. And then 35 seconds later, when the air conditioner makes a weird sound, we go, oh yeah, I'm meditating. And then when the dog barks, I'm meditating. And then when I should make a grocery list, I can make it after I'm done meditating. That's all it is, y'all. That's all it is. We will get distracted, we will bring ourselves back. And why is that valuable? Because life is distracting. And we will be walking along and we will be like, I hate those people. Nope, I remember now. I am working on compassion. I'm bringing it back. Oh, people in the traffic. Nope. Oh, yeah. Woo, here I am, being spiritual. Bless you on your way. Zones of protection around your wildly careening car. And anyone else you might drive into. Oh, I can't believe they're out of my favorite French fries at the drive. Oh, no, bringing it back. See how it's the same thing? That's what we're doing, is bringing it back over and over and over again. Practice is simple. Truth is simple. We make it hard, but it isn't hard. All it is a commitment, that personal commitment to commune with the one every day. In what ways? 4 ways. Talk, listen, touch into the truth, self-reflect. It's so simple. It's like brushing your teeth. We know how to do the 4 steps. We get the brush wet, presumably. If you don't, see me after. We can chat. We get the brush wet. We put the toothpaste on. We brush it. We spit. We usually rinse, but technically that's not part of the process. We know how to do 4 things as a habit. If we don't do it every day, what happens? We get to experience the consequence of having unclean teeth, which is largely unpleasant. If we lived with unclean teeth for years and years and years, we might think that's normal. But the first time we brush our teeth, we feel the difference. Ernest said, meditation is inspiration, treatment is the practical application. I would add, reading wisdom is the touchstone of truth. Self-reflection is the embodiment. It's simple. We can do this. Are we in? Yes. And so it is. If you are seeking to go deeper in your practice, if you want support in planning how these different kinds of practices can go for you, we're having a one-day retreat on September 9th right here at New Vision Center that is all about daily substantial spiritual practice, creating practices that you will actually do, and planning for the hard days so that you are ready when those hard days come. Let's anchor this in with some prayer. Oh, how good it is to just rest in the knowingness that Infinite Spirit is right where we are every moment, ready to be called into our awareness through whatever practice we choose. Through a simple knowingness, through prayer, through meditation, through connecting with written or recorded truth, with touching into our own heart to see how Spirit speaks through us in self-reflection. How beautiful it is to know that there is no situation, no way of feeling, no experience that is not healable in the one, and that we have access to that one every minute, every day, all the time, and it's easy. The entire universe is designed to support us in connecting with that spirit of our truth. And so I speak a word of blessing over everyone within the sound of my voice, knowing that this practice that is just right for each of us rises up within and makes itself known so that we all may have that life of beauty and power and wholeness and strength. So grateful I am, and I call it all delightful. As we claim it together, we say, and so it is.